Prime Minister meets Yunus amid strained ties. Bangladesh raises Hasina extradition with Prime Minister. India raises a tax on Hindus in Bangladesh. Meet first since Sheikh Hasina's ouster. Top focus at 5 Live with Gaurav Sawant.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi was in Thailand for the BIMSTEC summit. Now, there was a bilateral meeting with the chief advisor to Bangladesh administration, Nobel laureate Professor Modi-Yunus, on the sidelines of the BIMSTEC summit. In this meeting, India raised several concerns with Bangladesh. The situation in that country since the ouster of the Sheikh Hasina government, India reiterated that New Delhi seeks a stable, peaceful, progressive and inclusive Bangladesh. India not only sought protection of all minorities, including Hindus in Bangladesh, but also arrest, prosecution and action against the perpetrators of that violence. Bangladesh raised the issue of not just the Teesta waters, but also the extradition of the ousted Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina, who barely managed to leave Bangladesh as radical Islamists reached her house and escaped to India. We bring you more in this report.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi meets Bangladesh's chief advisor Modi-Yunus on the sidelines of the BIMSTEC summit in Bangkok on Friday. This was their first meeting since the ouster of Sheikh Hasina from Bangladesh. India took up the issue of atrocities against Hindus in the neighboring country during the talks.
Minorities की अल्पसंख्यकों की जो वहाँ पे हालत है और इस विषय को लेके प्रधानमंत्री जी ने इस मुद्दे को खुल के सामने रखा। जो जिम्मेदारी है वो बांग्लादेश सरकार की है और उन्होंने आशा जताई कि बांग्लादेश सरकार इस विषय पे अपनी जिम्मेदारियों पे खरी उतरेगी और इन चीज़ों को आगे इनकी जांच करेगी।
The Yunus regime, on its part, raised the asylum given to Sheikh Hasina by India.
আমাদের যেগুলো স্বার্থ সংশ্লিষ্ট যতগুলো বিষয় ছিল সবগুলো বিষয়ই আমাদের চিফ অ্যাডভাইজার মহোদয় সেই মিটিংয়ে বলেছেন। যেমন শেখ হাসিনার প্রত্যর্পণ বিষয়ে কথা হয়েছে, শেখ হাসিনা যে ওইখানে বসে অনেক ধরনের ইনসেন্ডিয়ারি কমেন্ট করছেন সেগুলোর বিষয়ে কথা হচ্ছে।
शेख हसीना का सवाल है और उनके सिलसिले में जो बांग्लादेश की ओर से हमारे पास इस मुद्दे पे एक निवेदन आया है। इस समय इस विषय पे कुछ और कहना मेरे लिए उचित नहीं होगा।
Prime Minister Modi reiterated India's support for a democratic, stable, peaceful and progressive Bangladesh. The talks between the two leaders takes place just days after Yunus invited China to expand its influence in the region.
7 states of India, eastern part of India, called Seven Sisters. They are landlocked country, landlocked region of India. They have no way to reach out to the ocean. We are the only guardian of the ocean.
In the meeting on Friday, the two leaders appeared to break months of chill. Yunus presented a throwback photo to Prime Minister Modi. The portrait showed Prime Minister Modi presenting a gold medal to Yunus at the 102nd Indian Science Congress in 2015. With Geeta Mohan, Bureau Report, India Today.
So I want to talk a little more about India seeking a democratic, stable, peaceful, progressive and inclusive Bangladesh. Clear indication that Bangladesh is right now neither stable nor peaceful, clearly not progressive given the fact that radical Islamists are on center stage, clearly not inclusive with minorities including Hindus being targeted, being forced out of their jobs, and we're giving you those images and statistics of how minorities, especially Hindus, have systematically been targeted under the garb of being Sheikh Hasina's supporters. But is that actually true? We'll get you the ground reality on this broadcast, because when the Prime Minister of India insists that people-to-people cooperation is one of the main cooperations between India and Bangladesh, people of India are seeing what's happening in Bangladesh, and it's clearly unacceptable. Take, for example, in August 2024 itself, after the ouster of Sheikh Hasina, ISKCON Center was targeted in Khulna division. It was set on fire. Why should a temple be set on fire? Incident destroyed the temple, sacred deities. Why should Bhagwan Jagannath's statue idol be vandalized? Or Balbhadra or Devi Subhadra? Why should that happen if it's a political protest? Why are temples being targeted? Again, in August, ISKCON temple and Kali Mata temple were targeted. Devotees were forced to seek shelter. 2 Hindu councillors were targeted. They were killed. A temple in the Navgrah Badi was burnt in Chittagong in Bangladesh. Is this political? Or are elements not just in Bangladesh, but their apologists in India trying to justify it? February 2025, so it wasn't just in the heat of the moment then. February 2025, in Firozpur in Bangladesh, a Muslim mob attacked a Hindu shop, vandalized the shop, targeted a Durga temple. We'll show you images how Hindus were pleading for help. Again, the Radha Govinda temple in Patukhali, that was targeted in Bangladesh. Ramakrishna Mission was attacked in Bangladesh. So, is this political? If it's political, why are temples being targeted? Unless calling it political is just an excuse to give cover fire to radical Islamists who now rule Bangladesh. I have Geeta Mohan joining me on this special broadcast. Also, our Ambassador Veena Sikri, India's former High Commissioner to Bangladesh, joins me on this special broadcast. Ambassador Sikri, how would you look at India's statement that India supports a democratic, stable, peaceful, progressive and inclusive Bangladesh? Is India telling Dhaka, New Delhi telling Dhaka and Bangkok that you are none of these, high time you become this? Ambassador Sikri, can you hear me?
I can hear you, but what is happening is 10 minutes now I'm sitting here on this channel.
Go on, Ambassador Sikri. Ambassador Sikri, when India says we support a stable, peaceful, progressive and inclusive Bangladesh, what's India's message? How would you read this between the lines?
Well, India wants early elections in Bangladesh. This is the need of the hour. We have said that India wants a democratic, stable, peaceful, prosperous and inclusive Bangladesh. Now, these are the 5 elements. We have to analyze each of these 5 elements and see. When we look at the first one, the democracy, the very first one is that this regime, are they capable of organizing elections? For me, it seems that they are unwilling or unable to organize elections. First of all, they're not even a caretaker government because they do not fulfill the mandates of being a neutral non-party regime. They have the Islamist parties within them. They have the Hizb ut-Tahrir, they have the Islami Andolan Bangladesh, they have the Hifadhat-e-Islam, and you have the Jamaat-e-Islami, which is the real power behind the throne of Modi-Yunus. Modi-Yunus is unable to act on his own without the Jamaat-e-Islami's clearance. So I think that the first thing to be seen is that unless there are democratically held elections in Bangladesh, which include all the political parties, which are free and fair, the situation in Bangladesh is going to continue like one of anarchy, where there's no law and order, where the economy is totally in the doldrum, there's unemployment, factories are closed, inflation is high, and they are trying to get all their supplies for the factories from other countries other than the traditional India, let us say like cotton or cotton yarn or cotton fabric, but it's proving to be impossible for them. So I think that we have to call this government out, call the Yunus regime out on their ability to, or with their willingness to organize free, fair and inclusive elections at the very earliest. Today in the BIMSTEC summit in Bangkok, we did see that Modi-Yunus in his speech said that he's going to have elections at the earliest. Now, here, this use of the word earliest was a move away from his earlier statements in Bangladesh, where he said, oh, it'll be at the end of this year or by June of next year. Very, very vague. But he also said in his speech in BIMSTEC summit today that we are mandated to do reforms in Bangladesh. Now, this is my question. Who has mandated them to do reforms? This is not the job of an interim regime to do reforms. Reforms
Yes.
are the task of an elected parliament. So this mandate, this so-called mandate that Mohammed Yunus spoke about, really does not exist. So actually, they should give up this whole idea of reforms and just focus on getting in a caretaker government, which will be non-party, which will be neutral, and which will conduct the elections within 3 months. This is what has to happen in Bangladesh, and I sincerely
Ambassador
hope it will
Sikri,
happen.
Sheikh Hasina barely survived by the skin of her teeth as she escaped from Bangladesh. Radical Islamists were practically at her door. Now Dhaka wants India to extradite her. They spoke of Pratyarpan as advisor to their foreign minister said. How would you view this? Is Dhaka also seeking to gag her in India when they say that she's been making, in their words, incendiary speeches sitting in India?
First of all, the whole process of extradition is a highly complex legal process. I think so far as I know, Bangladesh has only sent one note verbal saying, please send her back. Now, that is not the extradition process. The Bangladesh, within their own country, they have to conduct a full legal process. Trying her, what are they trying her for? What are they accusing her of? You know, even the UN report, the UN Volker Turk report, said quite clearly that the evidence we have been provided with does not enable us to assign any individual guilt. So there is no guilt at all with Sheikh Hasina for what she has done. So I think this whole business of extradition is a non-starter. They can talk as much as they want about it, but the question is that the extradition process means a full legal process in their country. Then they give the details to us. Then we do a full legal process here. It is not an easy process. It is very long. It is very complex. It is fully judicial. So the other part of it is that in the meanwhile, the Yunus regime themselves are making all these very strong anti-India rhetoric, which our Prime Minister even referred to today, that this does not help the relationship at all. I do not think there is a single evidence from Bangladesh present regime that they want good relations with India. They are talking about, when Yunus went to China, he spoke to the Chinese businessmen a few days ago, 4 or 5 days ago, and he talks about the northeastern states of India and says, Bangladesh controls their access to the Indian Ocean. And please take the northeastern states of India as an extension of the Chinese economy. Now, is this possible? Can a part of sovereign India, northeastern states are a sovereign integral part of India, can it be offered by Yunus to China like this? This has caused a lot of furor in India. And today we have seen another statement today.
Yes, that statement was meant to annoy India or lead to a response from India, because Mohammed Yunus wasn't born yesterday. He knows that he's making a statement about a sovereign country and he has no right to do that, and yet he did. So is he deliberately doing this? He does not want good relations with India, and yet, since it's BIMSTEC, they sought a meeting and a meeting was granted. Will this only embolden radical Islamists in Bangladesh?
Well, I think the way in which our Prime Minister conducted the meeting, and he was very, very clear, he was very, very frank, and he laid all the cards on the table. There can be no anti-India rhetoric. You cannot blame, there must be democracy, peaceful, stable, and inclusive democracy in Bangladesh, that you cannot go on talking. Bangladesh keeps talking about so-called border killings, but it is their people who come and attack the BSF at night, and then when somebody gets hurt, then they, scream blue murder and say that this is what has happened. So I think all these issues have been called out, but now it is for India to read the writing on the wall, that can this Yunus regime, which is an illegal, unconstitutional regime, can they be expected to conduct free, fair and inclusive elections in Bangladesh? It seems to me to be highly unlikely. And, they're just staying on their own. There is absolutely no reason why they should be staying on, claiming that they're going to do reforms which are totally outside their mandate. So I think India has read the Riot Act to Mohammed Yunus. And I think that in the coming days and weeks, we have to be very careful, monitor the situation, because the Mohammed Yunus regime has shown no interest at all in having good relations with India. They make anti-Indian statements all the time. They blame India for all their problems, and they have shown no interest in having good neighborly relations. We have been giving them rice, 50,000 tons, 100,000 tons. We have been, willing to sell them all the traditional exports from India, like cotton yarn, cotton fabric. But Bangladesh is trying their best to get it from other countries, and it's not working out because it comes out to be much more expensive from other countries. So they are in a very difficult situation. The main thing is that this regime does not reflect the wills of the people. people of Bangladesh. And
Stay with me for a moment. I want to also quickly bring into this conversation my colleague Geeta Mohan, who joins us from Colombo, of course. And Geeta has also been speaking to her sources in the Ministry of External Affairs. Geeta, we heard Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri, what India sought from Bangladesh. But tell us what sources are telling you. What was the conversation like? What are India's expectations of Bangladesh? And, India said, yes, we've heard you on the issue of extradition of Sheikh Hasina. But what is India's stance, Geeta?
Well, India is very clear. She's a guest. And a lot has changed in geopolitics, Gaurav. India does not really have to or will not be feeling the pressure from Washington, D.C. as it did earlier. The Trump administration is very clear on what has happened in Bangladesh is absolutely wrong. So India stands in good stead over here when it comes to hosting Sheikh Hasina, the change that is required and has to be brought about in Bangladesh with an election, with the due process of an election. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Indian government very clear on these counts. So while the Indian side spoke about minorities and the situation of minorities, there are certain quarters that were pushing for Sheikh Hasina and the extradition. The laws are very clear that the laws should apply. And since there is no process that has been initiated, there's nothing that India can do but wait to see what Bangladesh and the Bangladesh's interim caretaker government is really going to do in conducting of elections and in the meanwhile ensuring security and safety of minorities in Bangladesh, as also ensuring that India and Bangladesh remain engaged irrespective of who controls Dhaka.
Ambassador Sikri, Bangladesh is dependent on India from energy to electricity, from rice to cotton, and yet we see a rather hostile attitude for 8 months and counting. First Bangladesh goes to Pakistan, tries to play the Pakistan card, then it tries to play the China card, and we continue to accommodate Bangladesh since we've had a historic relationship with them. What is it that India needs to do to send across that message that, one, this is unacceptable, there will be costs on this, and yet ensure it doesn't go into the Chinese orbit? Because we've seen many neighbors cut their nose to spite their face.
Look, Chinese orbit is what Modi-Yunus is seeking. There is no question about it. Let's not make any bones about it. Yunus is seeking the Chinese orbit supported by Pakistan so that to make himself last indefinitely in power. He's doing that blatantly. He's doing that openly. So to think that we are going to try and prevent him from going into the Chinese orbit is not correct, because that has already happened and he's using the Chinese pressure for this. Now, whether we are constrained because of the present state of relations between India and China, I don't know. But I do think that for our own regional interests, for our own interests about safety and security in the Northeast India, in West Bengal, in all this region, we have to be very clear on what we tell the Yunus regime, and we have to be very clear that if the Yunus regime does not abide by what we are saying, I don't think this regime can exist much more. There isn't any popularity for the regime. They're all waiting to see what India's views of the regime are. But I think today, the way in which Prime Minister Modi has very categorically stated his views to Modi-Yunus was certainly looking very nervous during that meeting. The papers in his hand was fumbling away and so on. So obviously he has got a very strong message today from Prime Minister Modi, and it's up to him to see what he will do about it. And if he doesn't, even after this meeting, because Prime Minister Modi has given this meeting after repeated pressure from the Modi-Yunus regime, and he has explained categorically and very frankly what India's concerns are. Now, if the Modi-Yunus regime is not going to, even now, we're not going to abide by India's security red lines, then I think we certainly have to think of very specific action.
Now, what would that specific action be? Because, frankly, if Modi-Yunus is talking about India's Siliguri corridor area in whale terms, should we look at it as a threat when he talks about the Northeast being, the Seven Sisters being landlocked and cut off, and Bangladesh being guardian of the ocean? And External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, showed him a mirror very clearly that 6,500 kilometers is our coastline in the Bay of Bengal region, and 7,500 kilometers across the length and breadth of India is a massive coastline. But I want to understand from you, if he's talking about seeking Chinese investment to make a military base near the Chicken's Neck area and getting Pakistan there, as you said, this clearly is one, not friendly, it's clearly a very hostile act that he's contemplating.
It is a hostile action. We have to recognize it as such, and we have to call it out as such. We are not going to allow Chinese labor, Chinese people, Pakistani generals to roam around in that Siliguri corridor area. I think we have to draw up those red lines, because this just cannot be done. And I think that even further calling out of the statement on the Northeast is important. We have done that. Our External Affairs Minister, on the statement made yesterday in BIMSTEC ministerial meeting in Bangkok, was very clear. He said there's no cherry picking allowed in this. It has to be a holistic, integrated relationship. As part of this holistic, integrated relationship, certainly Chinese or Pakistani presence in Lal Munir Hat near the Siliguri corridor is not going to be acceptable. We have to lay down the red lines on that. And this is where we have to come and clear. And, in our talks between the two army chiefs, I think it would be a good idea for the army chief of Bangladesh to visit India and to understand from India what our concerns were. At one time, there was a lot of talk about the army chief visiting India. But we do know that in the meanwhile, even the Pakistanis were conniving with certain elements in the Bangladesh army to try and replace the army chief. So you can imagine the lengths to which Pakistan is ready to go to establish their control. They think they are in the pre-71 era. They think that, there's no longer any question of liberation anymore. And this is once again East Pakistan for them. I think the people of Bangladesh are not ready for this at all. They do not want, they are proud people, they are sovereign nation. They are very proud of the history of the liberation war and their successes as an independent country, the economic successes they have achieved. They're proud of that and they want to continue with that. And they do realize that a good relationship with India is mutually beneficial. And Bangladesh.
And Geeta, have there been any indications whatsoever, because Ambassador Sikri very clearly points out that some of the actions of the Bangladeshi government in the past 8 months have been unfriendly and some instances clearly very hostile. Any indications that they will mend their ways or they think that they will use that Pakistan card and China card against us like Modi-Yunus tried when he went to Beijing recently?
I don't see them mending their ways. I only see them changing or shifting a little in what they're saying and how they're saying it. Look, this was a gesture in itself that Bangladesh sought the meeting with the Indian Premier. They could have done without a meeting, given the kind of statements they're making. And the hostile or not so friendly statements came not so very long ago. He was in Beijing and he spoke about how Bangladesh is the hub, Northeast is landlocked, and so almost saying that India needs Bangladesh for the northeastern states. Dr. Jaishankar responded to that saying that it is Northeast that's the hub, and if they need connectivity and if they need to expand, then Bangladesh requires this entire region that is part of India. That was the response of India. So that's only just one of the many things that have happened. There are important relations and important connections that they're trying to make with various countries, balancing America and China, now getting closer to China because the administration in Washington DC has changed. So it is not for India right now, Gaurav, to be navigating this space. I think right now Bangladesh is in a very difficult position. They are trying to figure out how to get out of this one and hold an election and have a smooth transition of power and have someone in Dhaka who would be close to the people who are in power right now, and that Yunus will not be incarcerated. Remember, there are cases against him. So one will again have to wait and see how he navigates this space.
No, but this radical Islamists who've been unleashed in Bangladesh, they've been kept in check to an extent by Sheikh Hasina's regime. Though temples were targeted even then, it remains to be seen whether these elements can be locked up once again or there will be a challenge for whatever administration or regime comes in Dhaka. Ambassador Sikri and Geeta, stay with me. Ambassador Sikri, many thanks for joining me.